going on, guys? So today we're going to be making some beef jerky. If you haven't seen the other video I did recently, got a nice hunk of beef here for beef jerky, and couldn't help myself, want to do a video stabbing it with some knives and stuff. So you can see it's already pre-slashed up here. All right, a couple slashes taken out, as well as some puncture wounds here, some stab wounds from some smaller knives. But yeah, so first thing you want to do is get your piece of meat. You can make jerky out of anything. You can make turkey jerky. This is top round beef. You can do ribeye. You can do a really nice piece of beef as well. But, you know, I guess that's up to you how much money you want to spend making some beef jerky. This is generally pretty cheap. So I have a 4-pound piece here. I'm going to be splitting this into, well, I'm going to cut it in half. My wife is going to marinate hers in the flavors she wants, and I'm going to marinate mine in the flavors I want. I'll just be showing you mine, you know, for the sake of the video. And I'm trying actually a new recipe as well, so we'll find out how it turns out together. The very first thing you want to do is trim off as much fat as possible. Obviously for beef jerky, fat is not your friend, okay? Fat will spoil. The way I'm making this jerky, it doesn't last very long. You know, I snack on it, my wife snacks on it, so it's not like I'm making beef jerky to eat next month or next year, you know. So as far as moisture level, it's really personal preference. Some people like a juicier, you know, jerky. Some people like it like shoe leather. They want it completely dried and it can last a long time. They like gnawing on it longer. I'm kind of in the middle. I definitely want it to be beef jerky. I don't want it to be a dry steak. So there's kind of a happy medium somewhere in there. Yeah, I mean, I like to pretty much preserve it. You don't have to, I mean, I don't have to put mine in the refrigerator because I do dry it out quite a bit. But like I said, it doesn't last that long anyway. So today I'm using one of my favorite kitchen knives here. This is the Samura Sultan. Showed this a long time ago, but just kind of a cool little Persian style knife. So again, the first thing I'm going to do is trim the fat. Actually, before I even do that, I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'll use that same cut mark almost in half. All right, just so I can set aside my wife's beef and my beef. All right, so this one's a little bit smaller, so we'll use that side there. So let me put this off to the side here for a moment. All right. And then, like I said, we're just going to trim this up, make sure you get as much fat off as possible. And this is a labor of love. You don't want to cut off too much of the meat here. All right, so just kind of go a little at a time, make sure you're getting mostly fat. Pay good money for beef, and you don't want to throw it out. But yeah, that's what we're doing. The idea here is to trim off as much fat as possible for our jerky. All right, so there it is. You don't have to go crazy. You just want to trim off most of the obvious fat. Like this little piece of fat that's in here, this goes deeper into the meat, so I don't want to waste a bunch of meat, so I'll leave that. But yeah, just trim it up. Make sure you don't have an immense amount of fat there. Then we're going to go ahead and cut this larger piece into some smaller pieces. All right. So in this case, I'm just going to cut it into thirds. I'm going to go ahead and kind of flatten these guys. And by the way, wash your hands first before you do anything. I could pound these out a little bit, which it's not totally necessary. But I'm going to cut these now into thirds as well. So you're basically just thinning these out until you get further and further down to just some smaller strips. All right, so let me put these off to the side. Just give me an example of one of these. All right, I'm actually going to cut this in half now. All right, and then we go ahead and kind of, you know, flatten it out with your hand. You don't have to pound them out, but this is where I'm going to cut these into smaller strips here. Not super tiny. You want to leave a little bit of that beef, actually leave that like that. All right, and these are about the appropriate size for each piece. And again, I'm still going to flatten these out a little bit, you know, after it's marinated, and then we start the drying process. So there you go. You don't have to be fanatical about them being perfectly the same size, but you generally want these strips here. All right, and the reason that you want it all to be uniform, it doesn't matter if they're all big or all really tiny, but it's just so that they cook about the same time. You don't want to have half of your batch done and then have to put your other half back in because it's still, you know, needing some time to dry out. So that's pretty much it. That's the first step. Trim the fat, cut your meat down into manageable strips, and then we can move on to the next step. So the next step, throw your meat in a bag just to make this easy. What you could do, and sometimes I will do that, is grab a bowl, put all of your marinade stuff separate in a bowl so you can really break it up, It's mostly because if you're using any kind of sugar, like I'm using brown sugar in this recipe, which I'm making up on the fly, by the way, hopefully it comes out good. This is loosely based on something else I saw recently from a barbecue person on YouTube, but I'm totally mixing it up to make my own version of it. But anyway, if you're using sugar or honey, you really want it to kind of, you know, mix well. But I'm going to really mix this in the bag, just keep it easier so I have less dishes. But basically throw your meat in the bag, and then you're going to throw all of your flavoring stuff in with the meat. Makes sense, right? So we're going to start with a little splash of soy sauce. This is going to bring some saltiness to the party. Not too much. Just a couple little splashes there. And I know this is kind of, you know, not very helpful as far as ingredient, you know, amounts, but again, make it your own. A little bit of apple cider vinegar. All right. It's like, I don't know, tablespoon and a half, something like that. All right, let's put these off to the side so I don't forget what I put in there. Then we're gonna do a little bit of garlic powder and onion powder. This is total personal preference as far as how much. I'm gonna do 1, 2, 3. I like a garlicky. Let's do 4 heavy pinches of that. Now I have done fresh garlic as well. I think that works well if you're doing some kind of Asian type sauce with sesame seeds and teriyaki and all that kind of stuff. Then we have some onion powder. Notoriously gets clumpy, so make sure you really break that up in your fingers. We do 3 of those. All right, get that stuff off to the side. Then I'm gonna go ahead and put in some brown sugar. All right, and again, still kind of eyeballing this. Let's say, I don't know, 1/4 cup maybe. Just want to bring a little sweetness to the party. Then I'm going with some brandy. All right, this happens to be a cherry brandy. So this is kind of like half of the flavor profile. Let's put well, that much. I don't know, maybe 1/4 to a half cup, something like that. Probably more towards a half cup. Then I'm gonna go with a little bit of molasses, which I don't normally use because I feel bad. I don't know what they do with the rest of the mole. But let's go ahead and pour a little of that in there. And yes, that was a dry dad joke. I got dad jokes for days. All right, so maybe like a tablespoon of that. That's gonna bring a kind of a dark flavor. And then finally, kind of the main ingredient here is some Dr. Pepper. Now, this is 0 sugar. I've actually never even had this. I'm gonna take a little sip first, see what this is like. I don't drink sugary drinks, so I do get 0 when I want to get some kind of soda. Tastes like regular Dr. Pepper to me. And yes, I did drink out of the bottle because this is my house. And that's what I do sometimes. You don't like it, don't come over. So we're going to fill this up with at least a cup worth. Okay, maybe that's 2 cups. So plenty of soda. So the idea here is to do like a cherry Dr. Pepper type flavor. So it's going to be a little bit on the sweet side. Hopefully that vinegar, you know, brings it to, or, you know, cuts into that sweetness a little bit there. And of course I'm going to zip this up. Very good. Make sure that is completely sealed so I don't make a huge mess. And then you got to massage it. Massage it in the bag. Make sure you really mix it up. Again, the brown sugar has to break up in there very nicely. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Obviously, you can flavor this any way you like. If you have no idea of how much to use on different things, look it up. You know what I'm saying? You don't want to waste any meat. I don't mind, no matter how this comes out, I'm going to eat it. You know what I mean? So if it's not the tastiest in the world, I will still eat it. Nothing's going to waste. But for most people, you know, if you do a batch of something and flavor it kind of weird and you don't like it, then that does seem like a waste. So obviously you want to do your homework first and pick some flavors that you might like. So now I'm going to take out some of the air in the bag. Do the same thing, keep mixing it around, make sure everything gets nice and saturated. Let's open this back up and give it a whiff. Oh man, that smells fantastic. So it's mostly just like you would think, and what I'm going for here, it's mostly the cherry brandy. That cherry is really coming out, probably from the alcohol vapors pushing up into my nose, as well as Dr. Pepper, but there's the hint of a little bit of garlic and onion in there too. So we will see. We will see if that's a good combo or not. Kind of want to do something completely different for this. I've done videos on making beef jerky before. And every time I do it, it's just a little bit different. But anyway, that's pretty much it. You want to let this marinate at least 12 hours. I've made jerky before and let something marinate for like 4 hours, and it really did not impart much of that flavor. It's got to be at least 12, possibly 24. You want to at least do it like overnight. All right, and then, you know, of course, the next step is just drying this out. You could do it in your oven. I'm going to do mine in a food dehydrator, which is basically just a small electrical coil that keeps like a constant temperature of around 150, 160 Fahrenheit, something like that. But you could, of course, put it in your oven on the lowest setting. Let this thing cook 4 to 6 hours, whatever it happens to be, to the level of dryness that you prefer. But that's pretty much it. It's pretty simple. You're just slowly drying out meat with heat. So it's cooking the beef, but it's also drying it out to preserve it. And again, whether you want a piece of leather to chew on or you want basically a burnt steak, it just depends on how long you want to let this thing cook. But that's pretty much it. So we're going to see how this batch comes out. I'll show it, you know, once I have it all, you know, layered into the food dehydrator. All right, so next step, you can let these marinate. We did this for like 48 hours, so it's plenty marinated. I actually had some stuff to do, so it just sat in the fridge. Sorry about the background. I do have the air conditioner running at this moment. Christina's off to my left doing her flavor jerky, and this is mine. So all you missed, was I took the bag after it marinated, and then I kind of put it over the sink and just opened the corner of the bag a little bit and just squeezed all the juice out. You don't want it like dripping with juice. It's okay, obviously, if it's coated, but you don't want to make a huge mess, all right? Now, obviously, I'm using a food dehydrator, so I have these racks, all right? So I just spread them out. The biggest thing you have to know, it doesn't matter if you're doing this in a dehydrator or the oven, is just that they're not touching. That's all. Like this piece here is kind of touching. You just don't want touching. That's all. You want air to get all around, all the tops, the sides, the bottoms, and so forth. These are a little bit on the thicker side. Usually make them super thin, but as I was just talking to Christina, you know, sometimes this comes out a little bit too dry. I'd rather wait a little longer and have this a little thicker and maybe just have a better texture in the end. So that's pretty much it. I mean, you can still see there's plenty of fat on some of these pieces, so I just really want to watch it, make sure the fat's rendered, and when this is all done, that they're all equally done. Okay, so as you go through, in this case, I'm going to rotate racks like every hour or so. Just take the bottom one, put it on top so it all cooks and dries out evenly. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple. You could find these recipes online as far as how hot and how long. Really, just do a Google search. You know, this is just my version of it. But that's pretty much it for now. I'm going to let this thing rock for a few hours, and when it's all done, we'll do a taste test. All right, see what came out. So that's it. All right, guys, so quick update. These are thicker pieces, so of course it's taking longer than I'm used to, because usually I do super thin ones. But here's just a quick update. All right, so at this point here, all right, all these pieces are completely edible. I mean, it is beef jerky right now. As I bend this, you can see that it kind of snaps, but it's still very pliable. All right, and like I said, at this point, you can certainly eat these. I want to dry them out even more, so there's more of a chewing experience, if that makes sense. But this will be delicious just as it is. It really comes down to preference. You just want to make sure that it's cooked enough that you don't get sick. You know what I mean? But as far as how chewy or how dry, you know, it really is totally up to you. But they're pretty much done. All right, we are finally done. The jerky is ready to be eaten. So first, her jerky. Take a little piece here. You want to grab a piece for yourself? Mm-hmm. She's sitting here, by the way. She's doing a taste test with me. So what do you put in your marinade? Because no one saw you do yours. Remember?
This one was Sweet Baby Ray's sweet teriyaki marinade and some brown sugar. And that's it.
Pretty simple. And sesame seeds, because there's clearly sesame seeds, but that was obviously in the
That was in the marinade, yeah.
Okay. And that's how I differentiated between mine and yours, even though we marked the trays. One of the trays had both. But anyway, so you can see the consistency here. And the meat is like kind of glistening because it's a little greasy. It's the actual fat that's still kind of on it, even though they were blotted a little bit.
And the caramelized sugars too.
Yeah, exactly. But you can see it's definitely dried out. It's definitely jerky. So let's give it a taste test. Now, we're doing a lot of chewing, so I'll probably edit out all the chewing part. Okay, so that came out awesome. Yeah. I'm gonna be honest. It's really, really good. She played it safe using the marinade, and it worked beautifully because there's enough salt in there, plenty of flavor.
In the past, I haven't used a marinade before. Before, I'd use like honey and soy sauce. Yeah. Pretty much making my own.
Yeah, exactly. But it's good. It's just like, it's a little sticky, just ever so slightly sticky. It's sweet, and it tastes like a store-bought jerky, but with better quality meat.
And not as salty.
Honestly. And not as salty, and not quite as dry either. It's a little bit more pliable. But yeah, it's really, really good. There's no way around it. Just awesome. All right, so now we're gonna give mine a try. Now I did not play it safe. I did some weird stuff with mine, as you guys saw. So here's a piece for you to try. Now, when I put all my marinade together or made my own marinade, the main two things that were in there really was the Dr. Pepper, which was like Dr. Pepper Zero, so I don't know how that really affected it as much as far as the flavor goes, compared to maybe a full sugar regular Dr. Pepper. And also the cherry brandy was really predominant in the smell when I was first doing it. So go ahead and chew this up and see what it tastes like. Be right back. All right, so we're back. I think I dumped this out so you guys can actually see all the jerky anyway. Right? So you can go first. You can tell them your opinion on my flavor. What do you think?
I think it tastes like beer. I definitely don't get any Dr. Pepper flavors, no sweetness, very little salt, which is good, but yeah, it just tastes like beer.
So for me, it doesn't taste like beer. I don't get the Dr. Pepper at all. That did absolutely nothing for it. It just wasn't a strong enough flavor to really permeate into the meat, and I think that it has a lot to do with the lack of sugar maybe.
And the brandy's overpowering.
Well, I happen to like that. That's most of the flavor. I'm not really tasting much of anything else other than the brandy. There's a sweetness there, like a vague fruit sweetness. I wouldn't say it's specifically cherry. That's what I was hoping for. I would hope it would be like cherry beef jerky, which we've had once. Remember we went to that beef jerky place at the outlets? Mm-hmm. I might have even done a video then, or at least post on Instagram, but there was a whole jerky outlet place, and they had a cherry something or other, and it was delicious. It was really good because it was sweet. You really tasted that cherry flavor. Yeah. But they put like a lot of artificial cherry into it. Mm-hmm. I was hoping that you'd get a little bit of that from the brandy, and then maybe even from the Dr. Pepper, because I like weird Dr. Pepper flavored things. I haven't had jelly beans in years, but I loved the Jelly Belly jelly beans that were Dr. Pepper flavored. But anyway, so all that went out the window. It's vaguely sweet. It tastes like beef, you know. I understand what she's saying about the beer type thing, because it tastes a little, I wouldn't say alcohol-y, but something like that. Yeah. Like the alcohol itself from the brandy obviously burned off, evaporated. It's not like it's not boozy jerky. But it did impart a flavor that I enjoy, and that's usually how this works out, is I do something weird, and I like it, and Christina does her own thing, and she likes hers, and that's why we separate it, because she likes hers, and I like mine.
But you usually like mine too, and I usually don't like
That's
yours.
Usually what happens. And I usually eat all mine, and then she eats hers really slow, so then I've eaten some of hers too. Works out just fine for me. Yeah. But in the end, I'm happy how it came out, regardless of how you flavor it. The process was good. This is probably, because we cut it a little thicker, I mean, what do you think? We always cut it super thin. Yeah. Like I'll have the meat kind of half frozen, and I do that really so it doesn't take as long to go, but I kind of like this. I think I like it a little bit thicker, right? What do you think?
I do that a lot, because whenever we cut it thin, I always cherish those pieces that are a little thicker, that were folded over. Yeah. I always end up liking those more tender pieces.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a little more tender. There's still plenty of chewing going on. It's still dried beef, so it's not like, a fresh piece of steak or something. So you're definitely chewing it up. But I like this consistency. It's just really nice. So that is it. That's our homemade jerky. Came out great, even though my flavor's a little bit weird. I love it. And Christina likes hers, so we'll certainly enjoy it. But if you guys have a beef jerky recipe, specifically like a marinade you like to use all the time, of course, post it down in the comments for everyone to see. While we're chewing off camera, we're just talking about maybe doing like a Frank's Red Hot or something similar, like a real simple, buffalo flavor. You know what I mean? So we'll see for the next batch. But this is just something randomly we'll just decide to make jerky, and we always experiment, try something else. It's all about the experience. So. Anyway, but yeah, I'm looking forward to any of those recipes you guys have down below. Whatever works for you, we'll certainly try it out in the future. So hopefully you guys have a fantastic day. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with a brand new video. Take care.